So a very good morning, boys and girls, and welcome back to another video. Now it's early October, and as something of a tradition these days for me, I come down to these woods once a year at this time. I get the macro lens out and just find the mushrooms that have just started to show. So on this mossy old log here, there's a little tiny blue mushroom. It must be 4 or 5 millimeters tall. We've got the 1:1 macro lens out, we're nice and close to it, and we're getting a really nice looking photograph on the back of the camera. So let's go ahead and see what we can do with it. I'm down at f8, ISO 200, which is the base ISO on this camera. It's given a 1.3 second exposure time, so we need to keep the tripod nice and still. And we also need to use a 2-second timer just to stabilise the camera. Here's the first photograph. So something that I always carry around for this macro photography is this little LED light here. Now when you're down at macro sort of zoom levels and you're playing with very little light, I always find it helps just to add a little bit of artificial light in on your subjects. Now the mushroom that I'm taking the photograph is here, the light is here, there's a little bit of separation between them, so it's not really harsh direct light. It's a little bit further away and it just diffuses it a little bit. It just softens the light so it's not really harsh on the subject and blowing out the highlights. So we're down at f8, a fifth of a second, and ISO 200. And you can see just adding the artificial light in there just helps to increase the shutter speed a little tiny bit. Here's that photograph. Now I really could have stayed there and just played on that log all day long. There are hundreds of little mushrooms, but I kind of get the feeling I would just have ended up taking a bunch of photographs that looked pretty similar all morning. So I think we'll move on a little bit further into the woods and just see if we can't find something growing on the woodland floor. I can see around me there are a lot of brown mushrooms growing, so that fills me with some sort of confidence that a little bit further in there we may be able to find something a little bit more fun looking. So let's pack up and move a little bit further into the woods and just see what we can see growing on the woodland floor. It's a wonderfully warm early October day today. Just a great day to be out taking some photographs. It kind of has me wondering, I have this tradition where I come down to the woods to take photographs of mushrooms every year. Do you have any traditions yourselves? Anything that you do once a year? Let me know down in the comments. I'd be curious to know what other people get up to, if they've got any sort of photography traditions. If you are enjoying the video, please do give it a thumbs up and a like, because it does help the video and it brings new viewers to see my content. And if you're enjoying it a little bit more than that and you think the photographs are alright, drop me a subscribe down below. It does help me out and it encourages me to keep doing this. So I'm going to go for a walk around the other side of this clearing now. Let's see what we can see going on the mossy bits on the path just over the other side. So this little mushroom here that I've found on the track floor, it's a nice orangey brown colour. The mushroom itself I like. You can see it's been a bit of a faff and a finesse to get this tripod into a position where I'm able to get a photograph of it. The tripod's upside down and so is the camera. Now I just want to talk to you for a second about the tripod. This is a new tripod to me. The tripods you'll see me doing the landscape and the seascape stuff in, they're great, but they're kind of static. Whereas this one, it can bend, it's got a centre column that you can bring out horizontally and everything. It can move around. It's a Manfrotto B3, I think it's a GPGX. It's a GTXP. So this mushroom that I found on the side of the track here, it's been a bit of a finesse and a bit of a faff to find. This track last year was full of mushrooms the full length of it, and sadly this year either I'm a little bit early or they've just not really materialised. You know, we found it, it's a nice orangey brown colour. As you can see, the camera's upside down, inverted on a tripod. A bit of a faff to get the camera into this position, but this is where articulating touchscreens really come in handy. Now, the mushroom itself is in amongst a load of leaf litter, and I'm not in love with the background of the photograph. The mushroom itself is fine, but the background's a little bit off looking. So this is where trusty old fern frond comes in handy. So we're shooting at f4, so we've got quite a shallow depth of field here for this. So if I place this fern frond in the background of the photograph, it's just going to break it up and it's just going to give a little bit of an interesting colour to the background. Now we're down at f4, we're at 400th of a second and ISO 200, and if I just touch the screen on the camera, the 2-second time will activate, and there's a photograph taken. So the place I've come to today is called Northcliffe Woods Nature Reserve. It's around a 25-minute drive from my house. It's just outside of Hull, but I mean, look at the place. You could be in the middle of the North Yorkshire moors with the ferns, the heather, the trees. It's also a really quiet little spot, and that's one of the reasons I like to come here. It's just a great little place to come and chill out with a camera. No distractions, get away from life. It's just a lovely little place to be at this time of year. Now the lens that I'm using to take the macro photos today for the micro four thirds aficionados out there, it's the 60mm f2.8 lens. It's the best macro lens I've ever come across, I'll be honest. It's a lovely sharp little thing, it's nice and fast, but it also has a little cheat sheet button on the side of it, so if you flick that switch the lens instantly goes to one-to-one macro photography, and as long as you're able to move the camera backwards and forwards you can stay at one-to-one, shift the camera to find your focus. It's just a great little lens to use for this macro photography. Sadly it's one that I use maybe once a year, but it's always there if I need it. So I've moved back under the cover of the canopy of the trees now. I wasn't overly in love with the last photograph, and I think it was mainly due to the harsh direct sunlight that it was in. I prefer to do this macro photography sort of under the canopy of the trees, where you can either find a little pocket of diffused light on the floor or on your mossy log or whatever it may be, just to soften the light, or you can do as I've been doing earlier on and using an LED light just to control the lighting a little tiny bit. Now, one thing I'm going to address to the guys out there: have you noticed how mushrooms resemble something that you may see every day? Well, here's a fun little fact about mushrooms. The fungus itself is actually like a white stringy thing. It runs all around these woods. You just can't see it. It's underground, it's in the leaf litter. And the mushroom you see itself is actually the reproductive organ. So if you think about a mushroom and something else, and why they may look similar. So for this final photograph today, I've had to get somewhat creative with tripod use because I can't get the tripod low enough to the ground in order to take this photograph. So I'm actually having to use my, well, rather empty wallet to do this. So we're down at a 20th of a second, f4 and ISO 200. And we're really going to hope and pray that the Olympus Ibis helps us out here so we can get a nice sharp photograph doing this. So let's try and turn this light on because the battery is about had it. Let's get the warm light. Right, let's take this photograph. So before I end today's video, I want to address an email that I received from one of you guys a few days ago called Daniel. And yes, Daniel, I did recognise your screen name from the comment section, so thanks for pointing that out. I did recognise it. So the email Daniel sent me was off of the back of a video I made around falling in love with this camera, and it kind of been there through a difficult period in my life. And Daniel shared his story with me, the details of which I'll keep private, but your story was a lot worse than mine, and I wish you all of the best in your recovery and also what is going on over in that side of the world. The photograph that you sent me, Daniel, despite your own criticisms of it, I actually thought was a really lovely photograph. I really liked the photo that you sent, so keep at it. I wish you all of the best in your recovery. I wish your wife well, and of course your relatives who are going through things at the moment. But thank you very much for reaching out and just sharing your story with me. It really did, it touched me in a way that somebody would see my nonsense on YouTube and connect with it and connect with me, and then share their story with me. So thanks for sharing your story, Daniel. I did appreciate reading it. I appreciated you for reaching out for it. So thank you very much for that. And like I say, I do wish you all of the best in everything that you're dealing with. So thank you very much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it, like I've already said, please do give it a thumbs up and a like. It does help the video and it helps bring new viewers to see my content, and that's kind of why I do this. I'm trying to spread the story of micro fourth aids as far and as wide as I possibly can. If you liked it more than that, there is a subscribe button below me. You can press that and see more nonsense from myself every single week. But until the next time, I'm going to love you and leave you, and as always, I'm going to say peace and goodbye.